Thanks for staying tuned to your station, the African Independent Television, and welcome to your program this week. It's a pleasure bringing this program to you. My name still remains Patrick Abambo. On this program, as usual, will bring you the security information you need to keep your life safe and secure. Wherever it is, we'll bring it to you. Welcome to the program. Today, we have a very important topic we are discussing today with an expert who is well knowledgeable on that topic concerning security in Africa. Yes, but before then, I want to point out that the incident that happened yesterday in one of the courts here in Abuja with the arraignment of 67 minors in court who had been kept in incarceration by the Nigeria police for 90 days without proper care is quite condemnable, and everywhere, meaning individuals across the globe, have been talking about it. You're charging them for treason, but keeping them for 90 days without proper care, that at the courts they were fainting, and because of malnutrition and exhaustion is quite commendable. Yes, it's also praiseworthy that the Attorney General of the Federation had come out to say his office is going to take over the case immediately, and the Director of Public Prosecution of the Federation will look into it quickly. I think the Nigeria police should have done better in that regard. The response by the police force public relations officer saying the scene of the minors fainting was a drama, was a staged. It's not a good response at all to handle such situation. The children had to be given some first aid in the court. For whatever reason, this is aiding to radicalize these children, and tell you that in few years to come, some of these children might become a major terror, major problem for the country, Nigeria, and some government must do something urgently to look into this situation. Keeping them for more than 90 days, it's not something that we should be proud of at all. Anyway, I'm sure that since with the intervention of the Attorney General, something tangible must come out. And with the court granting each of them bail for the 10 million naira, it's quite laughable, really. But of course, wanting to keep them there till January is another issue that there's a lot of questions that need answers over to the government and to the police for that. But yesterday was quite a historic one at the defense headquarters, where the new acting Chief of Army Staff took over office. Sit back as we bring you this report put together by Shirley Daniels.
It's the very first time I'll be so honored outside Nigeria, and I want to thank Security Watch Africa for having eyes for details.
Some of us doing the same kind of job. For me to have been selected as the best crime buster is not easy.
In global security, we'll never be overstressed, which is also why I like a summit like this.
In as much as I'm a very accomplished man today, based on the fact that if my efforts, my hard work, commitment, and dedication to duty is recognized beyond the borders of this country, I think I have every reason to be happy.
I want to commend the organizers of this program. It is a laudable one, and it's just to motivate officers within all the African nations.
I express my appreciation for this very important award given to the Nigerian Navy and my humble self.
I must commend the Security Watch Africa for what they have been doing to bring all African security officers together.
Following the ill health of the Chief of Army Staff, Lieutenant General Taoreed Abiodun Lagbaja, the Commander-in-Chief of the Armed Forces of Nigeria, President Bola Ahmed Tinubu, appointed an acting Chief of Army Staff on the 30th of October 2024. With the appointment, the newly appointed acting Chief of Army Staff, Major General Olufumi Oloyede, on Friday assumed command with the formal taking over ceremony held at the conference room of the Defense Headquarters. In his remarks, the Chief of Defense Staff, General Christopher Musa, described the appointment of Oluyede as an unusual happening in the history of the Armed Forces of Nigeria, AFN.
I'm sure we're all aware that the event today is something that is new, that's never happened in the history of the Armed Forces of Nigeria. But as human beings, we know situations will always present itself, and what is done with the situation is what makes the difference. Our brother and our friend, the Chief of Army Staff, Lieutenant General Taoreed Biodun Lagbaja, went on his leave and went for his medical checkup and had reasons to stay behind to continue to do his medical checkup. It is our prayers that he will get better, fit enough to resume back as the Chief of Army Staff.
General Musa said the appointment of an acting Chief of Army Staff is in line with the provision embodied in the Armed Forces Act.
In the interim, based on the powers conferred on the President, Commander-in-Chief of the Armed Forces, he has decided and directed and appointed an acting Chief of Army Staff with the full powers and responsibilities of the Chief of Army Staff until the President decides otherwise. So for us, as professionals, we are to continue with our task ahead. No gap to be left based on the challenges we have in the country. And it's in the wisdom of the President and Commander-in-Chief that today we present the authority to the acting Chief of Army Staff for him to have full control and command of the Nigerian Army.
In his response, the acting Chief of Army Staff, Major General Olufemi Oluyede, thanked President Tinubu for finding him worthy and pledged his commitment.
I wish to thank God for the privilege to be here today. I also want to thank Mr. President for finding me worthy to discharge this responsibility as the acting Chief of Army Staff in this particular, peculiar, and sober situation. We find ourselves as a nation, as an army. As highlighted by the presidency in the announcement, my appointment as acting Chief of Army Staff is simply to hold sway while Lieutenant General T. Lagbaja, our Medical Chief of Army Staff, is a way to enable him to take sufficient time to get necessary medical attention and recuperate. And that I intend to do with the whole of my heart and loyalty to the Constitution, as well as Mr. President, and by extension to my leader, Lieutenant General T. Lagbaja, that I have been mandated to stand in for. As we journey through this unique period, I request that we all continue to pray for General Lagbaja's speedy recovery and safe return to complete the excellent job he has started.
Major General Oluyede used the occasion to seek support and cooperation from everyone.
I seek everyone's support and cooperation so that we can succeed together in stemming all forms of insecurity currently being witnessed across the country and return this our beautiful country to the land of peace and economic prosperity. Well, this is not a speech-making occasion, and therefore I will just wrap up by pledging my unalloyed loyalty to the Constitution of the Federal Republic of Nigeria and my appointing authority in the person of Mr. President and Commander-in-Chief of the Armed Forces of Nigeria, President Bola Ahmed Tinubu. Long live the Federal Republic of Nigeria. Long live the Nigerian Army.
In his closing remark, General Musa urged officers and soldiers of the AFN to work in synergy in order to tackle security challenges in Nigeria.
I want to count on all of us, whatever issues we have in mind, whatever thing, opinions, please put it that Nigeria must survive, the armed forces must survive, the services must survive. That is the paramount call. I would like everyone. So everybody should put his hands on deck and let us succeed. To all our commanders out in the field, the challenges are there. We want to commend them for all the efforts they're doing. We know they are performing magic. We want to urge them not to relent. The bandits, the terrorists, the criminals are not relenting. We must not relent. We are moving towards December, towards the festive period. We know the challenges that will come up. So we need to take all measures necessary to ensure that Nigeria remains peaceful.
Shirley Daniels, Security Watch Africa.
I am Vice Admiral Awoziberu Gambo, retired, the 21st Indigenous Chief of the Naval Staff, Commander of the Order of the Federal Republic Nigeria. I will be at the 18th African Security Watch Awards and Conference in Doha, Qatar, coming up between 10th to 12th of December 2024. I encourage all and sundry to be there, as I will be speaking on leadership, which affects all aspects of human endeavor, though with emphasis on security based on my personal experience. Please be there.
Welcome back. Yes, we join millions of well-wishers to wish and pray for a quick recovery for the Chief of Army Staff, Lieutenant General T.A. Lagbaja, so that he can return and continue with the service to the Federation Nigeria. Yes, I have already in the studio seated here my brother, my friend, an expert, international security expert, who is quite knowledgeable in the field. We'll be talking about, today I'm talking about David Otto. It's a pleasure to have you.
Thank you. Thank you very much.
Yeah, he's an expert in counterterrorism, Interpol, insurgency, and so many areas as concerns security. Today we'll be looking at Interpol in Africa, how useful in tackling insecurity in the continent. Yes, for the benefit of millions of people watching us across Africa. Some may not know what does Interpol do? What does it stand for? To understand. Please, can you just explain to us simple language?
Yes, I think before I dive into that, I really want to, add my words onto the speedy recovery of, Lieutenant General T.A. Lagbaja. We wish him well, but also to, clearly loud the Nigerian Army and the Chief of the Commander-in-Chief for appointing, someone to, quickly act on behalf of the Lieutenant General T.A. Lagbaja and in this case, Major General Olufemi. I think, what that demonstrates, Mr. Patrick, is that, the Nigerian Army has evolved and has taken into consideration the current security situation in Nigeria regionally and has done a very quick move to ensure that, just like the CDS said, General Musa, that there are no gaps left. We wish that the Nigerian Army gives their support to the acting, Chief of Army Staff, and just like he called, I think it's very important that Security Watch Africa has highlighted that area, but also, Mr. Patrick, I think it's also important to highlight the, the area which you mentioned earlier on about the, the arraigned, minors. I think we have come to a very critical point in our criminal justice system, where we have to ensure that, the police, enhance their role. And this is what we're going to perhaps discuss, when we're talking about Interpol and the role of the national police in terms of, protecting the rights of children, but also the role of the courts, to ensure that where there are errors or mistakes, that is corrected, as the Attorney General has stepped in. We do not want to see scenarios, Nigeria is a huge asset, globally.
Yeah.
And whatever happens within the criminal justice system in Nigeria is being watched, by all other 190 plus countries in the world. So it's critical that Security Watch Africa also mentions that. Now, coming back to the discussion of the day, which is Interpol. As you rightly said, a lot of people do not really understand what Interpol is. When you talk about Interpol, people simply would think, okay, an international police that just arrest people. That is also part of what Interpol does, of course. But this is an entity which even precedes the United Nations. Interpol was founded in 1923 in Vietnam. Today it marks almost 101 year, and as we speak, there is preparations for the I think the 92nd General Assembly, which is going to take place in Glasgow in the United Kingdom, where there will be some appointments and elections for the General Assembly for the committee members. But Interpol, to put it very simple, is international policing. It's simply about understanding that one country cannot police its own territorial boundaries alone, and therefore you need the collaboration, the coordination, the sharing of information, the sharing of operations with other countries. And this is how Interpol was generated. It was founded on the basis that when one country is unable or incapable of actually arresting or pursuing a particular crime outside its territorial boundaries, then a member country of Interpol is going to assist. It has the biggest, the biggest membership in all international organizations, even bigger than the United Nations. It's got 196 members, plus the Holy See, and also the State of Palestine, which are observer members. So it is the biggest international organization, and it is the biggest police organization in the world. So Interpol is one of those organizations that helps critically in international policing. And when I talk about international policing, Mr. Patrick, I'm referring specifically to the fact that when one country cannot, for example, prosecute an individual because they do not have the jurisdiction to do that, they collaborate with Interpol. And Interpol has done that by establishing what they call the Interpol alerts. It's got 7 of them. It's got the red alert. It's got which specifically is to track down fugitives. International fugitives. People that for example, somebody commits a crime in Nigeria and then goes to Cameroon. Then of course you have Interpol collaborating to arrest that person in Cameroon and bring them back in Nigeria. And then of course you've got the blue alert, which talks about ensuring that individuals who are committing crimes in one country or the other, Interpol would share that information to that country and say, oh, this particular individual, we are suspecting them of committing this particular crime. Then you've got a green alert, which looks at criminal threats that exist within countries. You've got the yellow alert, which is very unique in the sense that Interpol is not just about policing. And that yellow alert is more or less on missing persons. So if someone is missing from one country to the other, then Interpol would raise that green alert and say, we are looking for XYZ individual. And that is something that for example, the sitting vice president of Interpol, who is Gaba Umar Baba, has been pushing a lot that we should not just be looking at those policing aspects, but issues of missing persons. Then, of course, you have the yellow, the black alert, which is unidentified bodies. If someone dies in one country and they are unable to identify them, Interpol would send information. They would collaborate with other countries. These are some of the very, very critical issues. Of course, you have the orange, which is about public alert, and of course, the purple, which gives information on criminal methods, different methods that criminals use in different countries. So Interpol has all those very critical areas. It's not just about human trafficking, which it does best. It's not just about organized crime, terrorism, drug trafficking, and things like that, or arms smuggling, but it looks at those very critical daily policing aspects. And the good news, Patrick, is that Interpol cannot actually function properly without Africa, because Africa has the highest membership of Interpol. And this is where I think it's very crucial that now that we're talking about a scenario where Africa has 55 members in Interpol, the biggest, it has a greater say. So now that Africa has that kind of position, how do we, as Africans, how does Nigeria, as the biggest black nation in the world, how does it push itself? And this is one of the strengths that Interpol has had for the past 3 years under the leadership of people like Gaba Umar, AIG Gaba Umar, who has really pushed the position of Africa within Interpol, because we did not utilize the strength of our numerical strength
in the past.
In the past, and he has highlighted that, and I'm quite curious to see, because in the I think about 3 other countries, because Nigeria now has lost that seat effectively from the 4th to the 7th of November. Nigeria will no longer own that seat. I think there are 3 countries that are contesting for that: Benin, Morocco, and Namibia. So what I really wanted to see now is how other countries can copy from what Nigeria has done. To continue to enhance Africa's position within Interpol. So that is what Interpol is. That's the structure of Interpol. That's the position that Africa owns. So it's quite interesting to see how that is going to progress.
In fact, I'm quite interested about it, because talking with you, I know that in 2016 you are one of those international experts that helped to draw out and set up Interpol counter-terrorism in faraway Bali in Indonesia.
Yes.
Now, with what retired AIG Umar had done in the past 3 years, unfortunately, like you said, he will not be returning because Nigeria has lost it. Some people are wishing he could be given some extension to do more.
Yes.
What do you think has come into Africa in terms of benefits, and how useful has it been?
I mean, it's been incredibly beneficial. And you mentioned 2016. I mean, 2016, that was the time of IGP Adamu, and I was one of the 5 experts that was drafted in. And coincidentally, at the time, in Bali, Indonesia, AIG Umar was there as well. He has been very active.
Yes,
I think that was the first time that we actually ever met him. And we were looking specifically at the time, to enhance not just the global, but specifically to bring out the African dynamics, when it came to counterterrorism, because a lot of the times, a lot of African countries, of the African policing nations, were going outside to seek for solutions. But what we had in people like Nigeria at the time and AIG Umar was that, because of the experience that Nigeria had in tackling Boko Haram, and the experience that the Nigerian police had faced, in the early days of Boko Haram, that kind of experience, so Nigeria brought something really crucial to the table. And when we designed the Interpol Global Counterterrorism Strategy, Africa was a very crucial aspect of that. The African dynamics, the illicit flow of arms, the motivational factors, the ungoverned spaces, the issue of collaboration between the police and the military, but also between the police and the civil society organizations and what you call the civil-military interaction. So that was quite crucial, and this is where I think Nigeria had a very strong voice, in developing that. And with the appointment of Umar at the time in 2021, I think as the vice president, he has really enhanced that. Brought in the I-247. Which is information sharing, talked about the ENACT, which is enhancing, cross-border and serious organized crime. I mean, Nigeria has really played a critical role. That is why I'm quite concerned at this point in time that will these other African countries, are they going to be able to fill the shoes of what Nigeria has done? But critically, how does people like, AIG Umar, if he wants, I mean, I haven't spoken to him for some time, but how would he pass on that knowledge? And what role can he continue to play, perhaps, as an advisory, perhaps to maybe the Nigerian government on how to, You know, I know that, you know, within Nigeria itself, you know, they have very powerful members within Interpol that are represented. I know of Uche Infanyi, who is the head of, who was appointed also the head of the cybercrime in Interpol. You know, so they are very powerful members within Interpol in Nigeria. And I think, you know, what Africa really needs is that experience. You know, Nigeria has been unique specifically because of the number of crimes and threats that Nigeria itself has experienced. And even though Nigeria has not been able to tackle those crimes 100%, but that experience that they've been able to share that experience, and so that other countries do not make the same mistakes. I think this is where that strength, you know, comes in. And you know, I would like to see, you know, how this continues with the membership of Benin, Namibia, and
Morocco,
and of course Morocco. But again, as I said, you know, West Africa is going to struggle a little bit. Yeah. And you know, I think, you know, with the absence of AIG Umar Baga now, I don't know how that's going to work.
Yeah, to be honest. For some of us who are very close to Umar and with Interpol operation, we're quite actually disturbed and scared because we know he brought his weight and the experience and his knowledge to bear in that situation.
He did indeed.
Because there's a lot of things he tried to bring. Tracking of illicit arms, you know, be able to find out the origins and all that.
Yes, I mean, in addition to that, you know, sorry to interrupt you there. I mean, not just that. I mean, he has been very instrumental in, you know, actually carrying out investigations, arrest, you know, of fugitives. You know,
of course, so many
of them. You know, he's brought a lot of innovations. You know, again, you know, Nigeria now has these. Trafficking of illicit arms coming from Libya, very instrumental in that. You know, so it would be interesting to see how the NCB. I know that, you know, people like AIG Idowu, who are heading the Interpol NCB, they are quite experienced as well. But you know, what I really wanted to see is how that experience should not be lost. Yeah. You know, I know that the former president, Muhammadu Buhari, you know, appointed him as the advisor for international police, and I think that was quite clever. Because he did not want to lose that experience, that agility of, you know, of what he brings on the table. So we'll quite see how it pans out, to be honest. Yeah.
All right. We'll continue with this conversation because there's a lot of things that we need to talk about and Interpol and all this and how this Omar is winding down his tenure. So we're going to talk about it. We'll plead with you to find time and join us again. We're getting signal to go for that program, but I bet you there are a lot you have to tell us.
No, there is, yes. You know, of course, you know, there is a lot.
Time is just not our side, on our side. A lot of things to be discussed and to show you the viewers, but we don't have that time to do that. We'll say bye for now because a lot of other programs will be coming on. Until we come again next week, I say thanks for staying tuned and bye for now.
I'm General Christopher Gwabin Musa, the Chief of Defense Staff Armed Forces of Nigeria. I will be the lead speaker during the 18th African Security Watch Awards and Conference, Doha, Qatar, from the 10th to the 12th of December 2024. I want to invite all Africans, all friends of Africa, to come and support us. It is an important event where I will be discussing the support and the efforts of the Armed Forces of Nigeria to bring peace and security in Nigeria, in West Africa, and in Africa in general. I'm sure you that once Nigeria gets it right, Africa is going to be well. You are most welcome.